The state of planet Earth in 2026. The underlying logic of our world is actually pretty simple. There's just one sentence that sums up the nature of this world. Resources are limited, so competition is inevitable. To put it even more plainly, this is just an amplified version of the jungle system. What is a country, really? A country isn't some abstract concept. A country equals a collective of people. It's just that different collectives run in different ways. Some are led by the will of the majority, usually called democracy. Some are run by decisions from a small group, often referred to as centralized systems. But no matter the form, the core is the same. It's a system for organizing resources and distributing benefits. The world is already tiered. If you map the whole globe out, it becomes crystal clear. Tier 1, global rule setters, make the rules in tech and finance. Tier 2, core growth engines, manufacturing powerhouses plus fast-rising economies. Tier 3, regular nations, raw material suppliers plus primary manufacturing bases. Tier 4, peripheral regions, cut off from the global system, extremely high-risk zones. Why is Tier 1 so powerful? It's not vague strength, it's structural advantages. One population structure, severe aging, slow population growth. But it's not a big problem because they're already wealthy. 2, economic structure, accounting for over half of the global GDP. Per capita GDP, $40,000 plus. The bottom line, the money is already in their hands. 3, industrial structure, dominated by tech, finance, and services, sitting at the very top of the global industrial chain. The core, they wrote the rule book for the game. For social structure, high welfare, high living costs, mature education, and healthcare systems. Key point, great quality of life, but with super high entry barriers. 5, risk profile, politically stable, but facing mounting pressure for growth. 6, future trends, slowing growth, maintaining tech leadership. In one sentence, Tier 1 nations have entered a zero-sum game era. Where does Tier 2's growth come from? Positioned in the middle of the global industrial chain, they ray the main engine of world economic growth, carrying both the momentum to catch up and the pressure of development. 1, population structure, abundant labor force, a relatively young demographic, continued release of demographic dividends, accelerating urbanization with people flocking to cities. Core strength, young workers plus massive domestic demand underpinning their growth. 2, economic structure, rising share of global GDP, growth rates far outpacing Tier 1. Per capita GDP, $10,000, $30,000, narrowing wealth gaps. Key traits, in a phase of expanding growth, accumulating wealth at a fast pace. 3, industrial structure, focused on high-end manufacturing, mid-tier processing, and industrial production, taking over industries shifted from Tier 1, steadily climbing up the industrial chain. Core role, the world's production hub, standing firm on real industries and production capacity. For social structure, gradually improving welfare systems, steady upgrades in people's livelihoods, fast developing education and healthcare, though still lagging behind Tier 1. Core priority, development comes before welfare, with living standards rising rapidly. 5, risk profile, generally stable domestic politics, with policy fluctuations in some countries, facing tech blockades and trade suppression from Tier 1, heavy external competitive pressure. 6, future trends, maintaining medium to high economic growth, pushing forward industrial upgrades. Some nations may break through bottlenecks and mount a challenge to Tier 1. In one sentence, Tier 2 is in a critical phase of growth surges and industrial upgrading. What's life like for Tier 3 nations? Tethered to the lower end of the global industrial chain, they rely heavily on resource exports and basic production, with development highly dependent on the outside world. 1. Population structure. Fast population growth. High share of young people, but low labor quality. Low urbanization rates. With large populations stuck in farming and basic manual labor. Core issue, big population numbers, but low quality, leading to massive employment pressure. 2. Economic structure. Small share of global GDP, low total economic output. Per capita GDP, $3,000, $10,000. Weak ability to resist economic risks. Key weakness, heavily reliant on external markets and global prices, with little economic autonomy. 3. Industrial structure. Mainly export minerals, energy, agricultural products, and other raw materials. Only capable of primary processing and low-end OEM work, with extremely short industrial chains. Core role, the world's resource suppliers, with no pricing power and razor-thin profits. 4. Social structure. Inadequate welfare systems, scarce education and medical resources. Severe wealth gaps, with low living standards for the grassroots. Core demands, meeting basic needs like food and survival, is the top social priority. 5. Risk profile. Prone to domestic political unrest, poor policy continuity, vulnerable to swings in global commodity prices and great power geopolitical games. 6. Future trends. Growth fluctuates with external conditions. Almost impossible to achieve independent breakthroughs. A few nations see modest growth thanks to resources, but upgrading is extremely tough. In one sentence, Tier 3 nations keep drifting along, passively dependent and barely getting by. Why is Tier 4 trapped on the margins, completely cut off from the mainstream global system? These regions face stagnant development and multiple existential crises, fully marginalized from the world order. 1. Population structure. Uncontrolled population growth, with crushing pressure on food, jobs, and resources. Severe brain drain, facing both labor shortages and mass unemployment. Core failure. Population has become a burden, unable to drive development at all. 2. Economic structure. Negligible share of global GDP. Economies basically at a standstill. Per capita GDP below $3,000, with long-term poverty in many areas. Key collapse. Broken economic systems, completely losing the ability for independent development. 3. Industrial structure. Barely any complete industrial systems, relying mostly on subsistence farming and handicrafts. Unable to join a global division of labor, fully abandoned by the industrial chain. Core status, 0. Industrial competitiveness, only kept afloat by foreign aid. 4. Social structure. No functional social welfare, collapsed education and healthcare systems, frequent wars, famines, and diseases, total breakdown of social order. Core reality, survival is the only priority, with no room for development whatsoever. 5. Risk profile. Long-term political instability, constant wars and conflicts, extreme geopolitical risks, with no country willing to engage in deep cooperation. 6. Future trends. Stuck in long-term poverty and chaos, with a bleak development outlook. Without powerful external intervention, they'll stay marginalized from the world. In one sentence, Tier 4 is stuck in an existential crisis, fully cast aside by the global community. What does a zero-sum game mean? It's simple. The pie isn't growing fast anymore. We're just fighting over how to redistribute it. If humanity can't access large-scale resources beyond Earth in the future, competition will get way fiercer. Conflicts will happen more often. Games between nations will become far more direct. We can even put it bluntly. Pretty much every conflict is, at its core, a fight over resource redistribution. From an individual's perspective, you've got to figure out one thing clearly. Which system do you belong to? Is this system working for you? If the answer is no, the reality is simple. People will always flow to places with more resources. That's why immigration is never just an emotional choice. It's a Resource-driven decision. An evening tougher truth. Some nations have built up centuries of advantages in resources, institutions, and technology. If you're in an environment with scarce resources and limited opportunities, no matter how hard you work, you're competing inside a system with a super low ceiling, but stepping into a higher tier system? So what's the real way out? Expanding beyond our planet. When Elon Musk pushes the Mars program, he's essentially doing one thing: chasing new resource frontiers.